we have native salmon, right? They're nearly disappeared, so there might be some left. And sockeye salmon were introduced in 1940, okay, because the native ones were almost gone. After being introduced, this genetically uniform group of sockeyes split into just two distinct populations that do not interbreed. One inhabiting deep areas of the lake and the other inhabiting shallow areas. Since the two populations now differ genetically, some researchers hypothesize that each has adapted to its distinct habitat. So this conclusion or this hypothesis is an explanatory hypothesis, right? It's saying we think this is why they're genetically different, right? Sound good?
Yeah.
And now what are they asking us to do? Which of the following true most strongly supports the hypothesis? So we want to get rid of other alternative explanations. If there's an alternative explanation, that would weaken it, right? So anyways, that's my thought right now. Should we just go through them, or is there one you want to talk about?
I chose B.
Okay, when the native salmon were numerous, they comprised two distinct populations that did not interbreed. I mean, do we know why they were distinct?
I just why they were distinct.
Does B tell us why they were distinct?
No, but I figured it was just because I don't know. They just ended up liking different parts of the lake.
You're like, I think it actually supports the hypothesis because that's probably what happened.
Yeah. And so this newly introduced sockeye salmon also followed that same pattern because
So
the lake just
they
promotes two distinct populations.
Okay, so do you see how you kind of assumed the conclusion to support the conclusion? Like you said, oh, the native salmon must have been distinct because of the different parts of the lake. Therefore, that kind of supports the conclusion that the sockeye are different because of the different.
Tell me why A is right.
Okay, so that's why B is wrong because we kind of have to assume what we're trying to prove.
Okay.
So A, neither of the two populations of sockeyes has interbred with the native salmon. Ooh. If we found out that one of them had, could that explain why they're genetically different?
Wait a second.
Who said that?
Me.
Yeah, Ben. Yeah.
That's completely the opposite way I read that.
Yeah.
Okay. How did you read A?
That there are three different types. There are three distinct genetic populations in the lake.
Yes, that's true.
You
That's
could
what
still-
that
you could
is.
still have-
A is confirming that there are three distinct groups, right? There's the
yeah,
native
but you
ones,
would still
and then
have three distinct groups if you have an intermix population, a native population, and unmixed population that was introduced. So I don't see that changing anything.
well, no, this does change things because remember the two groups of sockeyes. I hope I'm saying that right. This is a weird name. Sockeyes. 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 Okay, so you're a salmon expert.
Yeah, I worked in a fish market for like 6 or
Wow.
7 years.
You worked at a fish market
Did
for
you
6
get
or
this
7.
question right?
I did, yeah.
So the 6 or 7 years in the fish market paid off. Yeah, so sockeyes. Apparently, thank you for confirming that. Anyways, they were this genetically uniform group of sockeyes split into just two distinct populations, right? So they started out being genetically the same, then they became genetically different, and if you found out that the native salmon had interbred with them, that would be a clear like red flag. Oh, wait a sec. That's how one of them could have become different, right? Like you could not ignore that fact if that were the case. So the fact that they were uniform at the beginning, I think, is really crucial here. So you don't think that matters now, Ben?
Well, I can see how that, if you read it that way, that would be valid. I wouldn't have read it that way. So,
Read the answer choice or the passage? Because the passage is the
answer
one.
choice.
Yeah. I mean, the passage is the one that's telling us that they were uniform, right? And then they became distinct and different.
Yeah, but it doesn't tell us anything about. I mean, it doesn't tell us anything about whether one stayed uniform or one became different. And that's how they're distinct.
Yeah, they don't say, right?
Yeah.
But they do try to explain why they're different. They say, oh, they adapted to their environments, and if we found out that one of them had interbred, we'd have to say, whoa, maybe they're genetically different because they interbred, not because of their environments. The environments could totally still explain it, and the interbreeding could have done almost nothing. I don't know. But the problem is this is a serious potential problem, and answer choice A gets rid of it. Right? It gets rid of an alternative explanation, basically. And that strengthens the argument.
It seems like I don't know why I can't wrap my head around this. So I
Okay,
see,
so you have a fishies over here,
so
and fishies over here.
yes.
Mhm.
So the native population is different than Sockeye.
They're different than Sockeyes.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're
So
pronouncing
a
that correctly.
uniform genetic Sockeye salmon population is introduced to the lake.
Yep, they come in, they're all one group.
And then
They're all hanging out together.
Yes.
Yeah.
But eventually, down the line, some years, they have adapted
They have a falling out, and
different-
they go to different parts of the lake.
because some of them like the deeper, some of them like the shallow.
Yeah,
And
but we don't know why they went to the different parts.
right, but maybe they have whatever.
They just went to different parts. Yeah.
And who cares if the native population's in there mingling, breeding?
Who cares? What? Because the conclusion. The conclusion says, what happened? So they split into two distinct populations that do not interbreed. So the populations are totally separate, right?
Okay.
Some researchers hypothesize that each has adapted genetically to its distinct habitat. Right? So the researchers are saying now they're not genetically uniform; they're different, and they are genetically different because they adapted to their environment.
And because, like, let's say one population evolved, had a mutation, and
Had a
that-
mutation to
whatever, and that,
yeah.
okay. And
Okay, you're listening to that researcher, and that researcher is saying that, right? And you're saying,
Yeah.
oh yeah, okay, that makes sense,
Sounds good.
And then someone else raises their hand in the audience and says, hey, Jim, the native salmon have been interbreeding with one of the species.
but only one.
It doesn't matter, one or both, but let's just say one for now, okay? Wouldn't that hurt Jim's argument? Because he's saying they're genetically different because they've adapted to their environment, and someone raises their hand and says, no, Jim, the native species have been interbreeding with the ones that inhabit the shallow areas.
Right.
And then Jim would be like, oh yeah, that's true. And then someone else would say, doesn't that mean that maybe they're genetically different for that reason, not
Yeah.
because they've adapted?
Yeah.
And Jim might be like, well, yeah, maybe. And so that would seriously weaken Jim's argument, right?
Right. So then why are we saying it strongly supports it?
Why? Because A says the opposite of that. It says neither of the two populations has interbred with the native salmon. So we have no interbreeding going on, and so maybe they're different because they're actually adapted. It doesn't prove that they
Okay.
adapted.
I'm sorry. Thank you. Yep.
Okay,
Cool.
I just still disagree that that's a more strongly supportive.
what answer would you prefer, Ben?
I think B.
Were you here when we talked about B?
Yeah.
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 B does absolutely nothing. What does B do?
What? It supports that hypothesis better.
That they adapted genetically to their environment?
Yeah.
How?
They have got a gene that makes their blood handle cooler water better.
That's what B says? When the native salmon entered, they were so numerous they comprised two distinct populations that did not interbreed, and they had a gene that adapted them to deeper water? Doesn't say that in B, right?
It has the same pattern. The same pattern as what you're seeing now.
You had two distinct populations, but B doesn't tell us anything about why they became distinct, right? So they could have become distinct because they interbred with some other species. Or who knows? The problem with bees. It doesn't tell us anything about how they became distinct. It just says they were. And what we know now is that these are distinct. So you have two phenomena that are the same. I agree. It's confirming that they are distinct.
I see. It doesn't say anything about where they were in the lake.
Doesn't say anything about where they were in the lake or how they got there. Yeah, if they were in the same place, that might start to strengthen it. Even then, I'd still like A better because it's getting rid of a very, in my opinion, big problem. And that is if you found out that one of them had been interbreeding with a native species, you'd be like, oh, that might be why you're genetically distinct because that's going to mess with your genes. Oh boy, that's a fun one.
Well, that was level 6.
That was difficulty 6. I wonder what it was actually. We'll have to look that up.
It was a 5.